Well, good evening, folks. Hope you're well. Long day for me. Anyway, uh, the topic for this evening, and thank you so much also, incidentally, before I forget, for the previous videos. I'm glad you liked them. I tried to keep the topics a little bit eclectic in case we get bored and stuck in a rut, and heaven forbid. And yeah, I'm rarely lost for words, to be honest, because my head's buzzing, man. It's buzzing. So much to say in such little time. Because I don't want to go on and on and on and start ranting, as is my wont on occasions. But I don't know if you've ever had this experience in your life when you know somebody's got some explaining to do because you've caught them lying, or you suspect they're lying. And you think, well, how am I going to broach the topic, without offending? Because, once you offend a liar, oh my God, heaven forbid, it's just a nightmare, isn't it? You've offended me. You've accused me of lying. I'm offended. I don't give a shit, quite frankly, whether they're offended or not. I'm offended to think that for them, thinking that I'm so stupid, I will believe their bloody diatribe of lies. But I'm more inclined to listen to the explanation very carefully because I have two ears and one mouth and wait for them to talk. And more often than not, the liars have got three mouths and one ear, haven't they? Because God, can they talk. It's like the government. They've got an answer for bloody everything. It's like being jack of all trades and master of none with these tossers. Call me a cynic, if you must. Quick adjustment, excuse-moi. So tell me, why did you say that? I reckon this, and this is what I think is da, da, da. Oh no, don't be such a moron. I mean, did your mother have any children that lived by chance, or had an intellect, or had a brain cell? Are you gifted in your family? One brain cell? Are you gifted? This is what they say in their defence. They start, the moment you grab hold of a liar, and they know you've got them sus, but you're going to show them in a minute, it's best to keep your powder dry. Explain to me how you come to that conclusion that I should accept that explanation as to the events that occurred so far. Well, how can I put this in a way that you'll understand how patronising that statement? How very patronising. And it seems the bigger the lie, the bigger the patronising goes on, the more detailed and complex. And oh, bless their little hearts, these liars. They're going to explain it to the moron you're listening to, me, in simpleton terms. So at least even a brain cell like me, or someone who may be lacking them, if I had a brain cell, it'd be lonely. This is what they come out with. But they're going to explain it in such simple terms. Even a brain cell like me may have a chance in snowball in hell's chance of understanding their explanation. But hey-ho, I'm to take their word for it and just shut up and carry on regardless and get my shoulder to the wheel and my nose to the grindstone, if that's the right way round, and plod on regardless and just listen to their crap that comes out of their mouths. Now, what sort of crap are we talking about here, then? That's the big question, I'm sure, that's on your mind. What am I ranting on about here? It did develop into a bit of a rant, I apologise. I can't contain myself. I simply can't. I have to tell you, it's almost like a confession. It truly is. Well, forgive me, Father, for I've said, oh yes, tell me, my son, the curtain's drawn. Because the elites, the controllers, the hidden hand, you name it, hides behind this little confession box, don't they? And they listen, and then they start to give, go away and say 4 Hail Marys and we'll forgive you, my son, off you go. The Father, the Son, and in the Holy Ghost. It's very simple, these people. But the more devious and more bullshit that their lies contain, the more complicated the answers. And I'm a simple soul, me. Very simple. I like stuff in simple terms. It's very easy then. You see, The first thing you do is, how do you eat an elephant? Well, you slice it up and eat it one slice at a time. Surely this is the way of the world, if you're clever. But I ain't that clever on occasions. But I do have the nous, the gut feeling. It's innate in all of us that we are being lied to from start to finish about what's happening on this world and how we got here and what's developed. It started off, of course, with the main author of the the history. Well, actually, it didn't. It started way before that. But we started to take note, us intellectuals like you and I, where we could string a sentence together and at least comprehend what these people were saying, with the theory of evolution. Now they call it Darwinism. Well, Darwin wasn't the main author, quite frankly, of the theory of evolution. It was a chap called Mr. Wallace was the main author. He was the brains behind it all. It just so happens that in order to publish a book in those Victorian times, of course, you needed a fair bit of cash. And Wallace was strapped for cash. But he was a genius, to some extent. The money behind it, you see, with this genius book they produced between the pair of them, because it was co-authored between Wallace and Darwin, was Darwin had the money to make the dream come true in it. So what these two characters did was pull a fast one on the whole of humanity, quite frankly. And what happens? The scientists out there, yes, the elites amongst them all, said, that'll do, they'll swallow it now, we came from apes. Oh yes, we shuffled out of the evil, horrible soup like little tadpole, little mud skippers, humans, and this is how we develop. And it got so hard to walk in the mud, we developed arms, and then it was hard to maneuver, so we got little legs, and our gills, we could breathe the air at last. We didn't have to be in the water. We developed lungs, and this is the theory. And of course, yes, of course we come from apes. Oh really? Yeah, tell me about that then. I'm all ears, as they know. Yes. Yes, well, it all started with orangutans. Oh really? This is from a orangutan. This is from this famous, it was a mandible. That was all that was left of the orangutan that proved the theory of evolution. It was an absolute farce, wasn't it? And to be honest with you, I'm insulted. I truly am insulted by the scientists of today. Even, being a scientist myself in many ways, I'm sure you are in many ways, because just because somebody's got a bit of paper doesn't make them a scientist. It makes them a follower, a dedicated follower of bullshit. As long as they can regurgitate the shit they read from these university books and regurgitate it and answer questions on a bit of paper, they get their ology degree, don't they? They get an ology. Oh yes. The biology degree, bios logos, biology, the roots from that word, bios is life, and logos is Latin for knowledge, life knowledge. Well, I tell you, these people who've got biology degrees, they don't impress me much, because they don't seem to know much about life. The first question is who. It's a bit like that question, that little difficult one to answer, really. Who polices the police? Okay, that's number one. And number two is, who invented the inventor? Okay, that's the point. It's this unanswered, oh, it's a sticky one, is this? They've got an answer for it, though, haven't they? Oh, this Big Bang thing. Oh, yeah. Well, the Big Bang thing would have been such an explosion after the little singlets do their job. Or the whole universe, cosmos, a Big Bang, ever expanding. Of course it is, yes, sure. Oh, is that the time? I really must go to bed. Yeah, what happened then? We had this ball of gas cloud, and it settled down into what we call the Earth. Is that right? Oh, yes, it had to be a circle, a ball. That's right. And then what happened then? Well, life started. Well, how did life start then? You tell me how. Nobody, frankly, but the point I'm trying to make is, folks, is that what populated the earth with all the creatures that are upon it, from microbe to man to wonderful beasts, you only have to watch David Attenborough doing the deep sea stuff and narrate it, and look at the microbe from bacteria to an elephant. There's a nice broad spectrum of animals and plant life and things we can look at, isn't there? The majesty of design. Because our logic as human beings is things that cannot happen by chance. And if they do, it's funny how the next version of Mark II and Mark III and Mark IV continually to get better and better and better and more refined, because it's like everything else. You might like to invent something yourself, and it works. My God, Betty, it's alive, I tell you. And you've got this thing that works, and she'll say, her indoors, who must be a maid, usually comes out with this sort of thing. It's all right, but if it had a doodly flip and one of them, it would be much better. Now, unless you're that arrogant, you're not open to suggestion, but it's good to be open, not minded. Mind's like a parachute, only works when it's open. Well, I'm open to suggestions, and if she says add that to it and give it a bit of a tweak there and it'll be a better product, creature, I think, well, yes, it's obviously, I have to acknowledge that in some ways, yin yang of somebody other than me has an opinion. How very dare she? But I'm going to stick to it, and I'm going to apply that idea to my new invention, this creature that I'm developing, because I didn't think of that. Oh, if only. Should have patented it quick, but no, she's beat me to it. I'll add it to the product, and hey ho, she was right. Hate to admit it, but yes, okay, she was right. Just don't tell her. And I had thought about that, but I was going to do it later, but I may as well do it now, since you mention it. That's always a good answer. Since you mention it, I had thought about it, actually, without being smug. But, I wanted you in on the deal. So, the point about it is things do advance. But until you know that you've got spinach on your teeth, and you look an idiot, and somebody highlights the fact you have spinach on your teeth, and you look an idiot, because you're not aware of it, because you haven't been near a mirror lately, you're not going to take the spinach off, are you, until someone tells you, hey, you got spinach on your teeth. I would like to know this information. Okay? And I don't care who says it. But the point of this video is to say to you, and I'm not a religious person, folks, I'm truly not. I'm very spiritual in the sense that I am willing to acknowledge how pathetic human beings truly are. And we think we are so bloody fantastic. We are the head of the knowledge. No, heck. There's plenty of things that animals can do that I can't. There's plenty of things birds can do. I wish I could fly. I ain't that good, and I'm too heavy, and I'm not geared that way. I just got to accept my limitations as a human being. As bright as we like to fantasize that we have to stop thinking we're the king at a castle. And that's really hard for scientists to admit. That perhaps it's us that are the stupid ones. Perhaps we are evolving, and we think we're evolving from cavemen. What a lot of nonsense. There's no evidence to suggest that we evolved from cavemen, us modern humans. None. We were tweaked. Our DNA has been tweaked for a long time by people and beings so superior to us, it's incalculable. Okay? If I came from another planet and said, what's the distance between here and Australia, UK to Australia? Well, I'd have to think in kilometres or miles or metres. I wouldn't do it in metres, but kilometres or miles, wouldn't I? Same as you. Estimated, roughly, from UK to Australia. But that's because I've calibrated my thought and my education. I know what a mile is, and I know what 50 miles is, and 100 and 1,000 and 10,000. I can imagine, and I can scale it to UK to Australia, because that's the way I roll. That's the way I've been trained. Okay, I only know that, folks, not that I was born with that knowledge. It's what I've been taught. So we're all subject to disinformation because we could have been taught entirely the wrong way. It's similar to when you consider how it is. I never quite grasped this. Anybody who's a Trekkie fan out there can perhaps explain to me. When you see Captain's log, Stardate 2447, whatever Kirk said, and the film was starting, Star Trek, wow, here it is, the Enterprise, and the big picture was the Enterprise flying through dark space with a couple of bits and pieces going on around it, but it was going into the stars, wasn't it? And the stars were flying by. How is it, right, with all those billions and billions and billions of alleged stars, that sooner or later the Enterprise didn't hit one head on? It just seems to miss them all, doesn't it? All these billions and billions and billions of stars, and the Enterprise never seems to hit one, or suck a couple down the engines, if it is indeed suction. Oh no. But physical hitting the stars, we don't seem to. And then they travel at warp speed. Get that? Warp speed from one side of the universe to the other. In a heartbeat, at warp drive. The whole time thing slows down. Spock starts to talk in slow motion. You know, Captain, the lithium crystals cannot take it anymore. And they're all jerk-o vision. They're going through this super duper 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 high speed, hyper light, whatever they want to call it. And they never seem to hit anything. Just because going fast doesn't mean they're fantastic at dodging, are they? So it's utter nonsense. We're salivating. Oh yes, we can put men, you know, we can send people to Mars. Of course we can. We can send people to... Really? Okay, how are we going to do this then? And you seriously expect me to believe it? Oh yes, so we've put men... We've got a big thing going on in the moon. We put people on the moon. Well, that's plausible when you consider that the moon is practically within the firmament. Whether it exists or not truly, and it's not a hologram, I'm open to debate. But maybe it's a disk that is burnt out, and we're projecting what is perceived from a holographic point of view, a disk on a round picture on a disk that's burnt out that was a previously burnt out sun, which was suggested to me, and I'm willing to take it on board. The moon is certainly something physical, but maybe there's being projected on it some holographic image. And that's just to keep our minds off things as the world progresses. And no one's ever landed on the moon. Not as we know it, Jim. So we're expected to believe all this bollocks. It's like when you're trying to believe your teenager children, what they were up to last night when they're, you know, and you may as well, I mean, you can tell when teenagers' mouths are moving, are lying, it's because their mouths are moving. It's very straightforward. Ask Judge Judy. But as any parent will tell you, when their children's mouth are moving, the chances are it's a lie. But the proof, you see, the proof sits under the Vatican. All right? We only have historians' word that the great libraries of Alexandria were burnt to a crisp. Really? Okay. Where are the books? Oh, they all got burnt. Have you seen the size of the libraries of Alexandria, where they purport to were? Have you seen that? It's bigger than any other library you can think of exists on this world today. It was bigger. And it disappeared like a fart in the wind, with all the books, with all the ancient knowledge. Oh, really? And that's why the Vatican have got 52 miles side by side of bookshelves, of corridors. 52 miles is a hell of a lot of books. And you and I can't see them. Of course not. They're not for plebs like us. But I don't care. Look, if they're going to lie about that, they're going to lie about that, aren't they? Because, like I've said before, I'd rather live with a thief than a liar, because with a lie, you never know where you stand. And they're so fantastic at it. And we're brainwashed. We're so easy. We're a sponge, and we suck all these lies in since sperm to worm throughout the whole of our lives. We're getting bombarded with lies and tissues of lies and layers of lies. Sometimes you've got to say, stop the bus, I want to get off. I'm not taking this anymore. I've had enough. I'm not going to be lied to anymore. And anybody who opposes the official lie, of course, is a conspiracy theorist, and ridiculed and vilified many times. How very dare you have an opinion? Oh my God, he's got an opinion. How very dare you? How simply awful. But one only has to look at the majesty, and that's an understatement. There's got to be a better word. The sheer magic of it all. When you look at some of the fish, for example, keeping it simple, stupid for me, kiss, at deep depths, where it's really hard to see light at the very depths of our seas, there is a fish, about that big, looks like a tropical fish. Nothing special, except that its eyes are on the side, on more or less on the front, a bit like a Labrador. And the only way it can see light is up, where the surface of the water is. Anything around it is dark, and down is dark. So it needs to be able to look up in case there's a predator coming for it. Well, like I say, call me old-fashioned. But the designer of this creature had the nous to understand that that fish had a problem. If it needed to survive, it needed to be able to look above with its little sunken eyes. But there was a thing in the way called its skull. And what it did was it made the skull transparent, so the little fishy could see through the transparent skull. So it took a lot of thought and know-how to make a fish with the frontal part of its skull, half of its skull, transparent yet functional. So this little fishy could look up to see a predator. Just that little fish. That's one little example. Another basic example is how the hell do flies eat? They've got teeth, and they've been invented and designed. They're great flyers, mosquitoes, if you look at them. All right? If you magnify them, you'll see how they're fabulous they fly. They are a classic blood-sucking device, aren't they? And you think, well, what's their purpose in life? Maybe there's not everything in life that's alive has a purpose. I meet many people like that. I work with a few. Can't see why they're even been born. What a waste of DNA. So the mosquito or the fly has a problem. They have a proboscis, this long tube. But they eat solid things, or they need to get food up, and it needs to be in a liquid format. And it has a choice then. Well, the mosquito can go with its needle-sharp proboscis straight between the pores of our skin. Wow, fancy that. It's thin enough. And it's designed to, it knows, whatever designed the mosquito knew the problem the mosquito was going to face when it needed to get blood from its prey, us, usually. But the housefly, have you ever considered how it lands on the ceiling? Have you ever tried to get it? Does it go along, stop, upside down and up? Or does it roll? Or does it loop and hit the ground that way? Have you ever thought of simple things like this? But just the way that flies digest things is quite disgusting. This is why the great spreaders of disease, flies. It's their job, that's what they've been commissioned to do. Some genius out there developed flies. He was obviously bored one day. But the amazing thing, even the compound eye of a fly is so complex and sees coloured wavelength or the spectrum so much more than you or me, and yet we're supposed to be the advanced ones. Okay, and it is simplicity itself. Out of their proboscis, they regurgitate an acid, digestive juice, onto their food, hang around for a second, and then suck it back up, like inhaling a snot. Sorry to be graphic, but the snot is full of jellified digested food. It's like vomiting on something, waiting for it to digest and sucking it back up, and it does it through its little proboscis. How magical. It's disgusting, yes, but it's still bloody good design, don't you think? It's been around millions upon millions upon millions of years, before we had computers. That is just 2 examples. 3, mosquito, a fly, and a super duper fish that could see through the top of his skull. It could just take you an hour to watch David Attenborough's wonderful films of nature on our world. And then when some genius comes along wearing a skirt, a bloke normally, kiddie fiddle type, and says that, yes, they believe in the origin of species and natural selection, I want to slap 'em silly. Because not only are they talking crap, they obviously think I am that dumb enough to accept such nonsense. I mean, credit where credit's due. It takes a lot of balls for scientists to come out with the shit they expect us to believe. The tragedy is, of course, that many, many, many people do believe it because he's a scientist and he's got letters after his name. He's got an ology. Well, we know all about ologies by now. Really, you can have an ology in the study of the movement and production of plastic dog shit from Hong Kong. You truly can. You can get a degree in it. And it doesn't impress me much in it, though. I want to ask these people, and I do, and it doesn't make me a lot of friends, quite frankly, is that the honest answer is, the real truth of the matter is this. Human beings are nothing. Nothing. We suffer major delusions of grandeur. But if one only has to look in the mirror to see a miracle. So don't have a low opinion about yourself. You are absolutely, you're not the pinnacle of design by any stretch of your or my imagination. We're just one of billions of life forms. And we've all got our own little tricks, haven't we? Oh, are my cogger? That sounds like I'm from Bristol then, didn't it? I don't know, it's infection. I've got this infection. Anyway, won't mention infections from Bristol. I blame the seamen, the people who worked on the docks, not the seamen. Sorry, I shall move on. Well, no. We are nothing, yet we suffer delusions of grandeur. We're the most advanced species on the... No. We're the only idiots in town. We're the only idiots who pay tax. We're the only idiots who have to work for money. This man-made construct, by the way, for us, for the controlling the idiots. Okay? We're not allowed a minute's thinking time in the day to ponder and navel gaze and wonder where we all came from because we're too busy paying the bills. Got to get a job. Okay? Our job isn't to think. Our job is to do. That's all, because the human beings on this planet are a slave species. And we enslave other things because we don't like being alone, of course. We enslave animals to do lots of our bidding, and the menial tasks like sniffer dogs, and huskies to pull the sledges, and elephants to move heavy things. Yes, but at least they get a break from it all. We don't. Our very survival is worrying about who's putting dinner on the table, who's paying the gas bill, who's paying the electric bill. So we're all preoccupied. We're 70% of what we think is negative. It's trying to avoid chaos in our lives. 70% of the thoughts in our head are negative, and they are trying to kill off the mental monsters that we all live with in our heads. And the battle ain't worth fighting, because you'll never do it. In Scientology, they call these people who can think nothing but purity as clears. Well, what a lot of nonsense, Mr. Hubbard. You know, I can't believe that people like Tom Cruise, well, I can actually, fall for this crock. Because nobody can truly understand or know where we come from. But there is just too many things, Mr. Higgins, my fair lady, to explain. And if they can't explain it, they make it up. And it's exactly the same in our solar system. They can't explain it. It is so beyond human beings to comprehend what's going on, what has gone on to make us and put us in this position and build our world. We have to make it up. You couldn't make it up. Oh, you could. And no, they do. Because he's got an ology, so he must be cleverer than me. They're no more cleverer than you. They're no more cleverer than a dog. Really. The dog probably has more friends because it wags its tail more than it wags its tongue. Yeah. The dog knows where it is. It knows where it's coming from. Why do human beings have such a high opinion of themselves as a species? It's unbelievable. We'll never know what the animals think of us, will we? Goes to work, he pays his taxes, he commits suicide because he can't take the pressure anymore. What a sucker. Why doesn't he become an elephant or something? Yeah, you see the point? We're the mugs. We're the slaves. And yet we get people saying how advanced we are. And they also say how stupid you are. You'll amount to nothing, you. Really, I'm worthless, am I? You keep calling me a worthless sack of shit. Waste of DNA. Is that what's coming out of your mouth? Yeah, I'm telling you. This is often parents to their children, or ex-wives to husbands, and vice versa. And you think, well, who do you think you are? I'm worthless. Well, I tell you, you couldn't give me enough money to buy my eyesight or buy my arm off me, or I wouldn't sell you a leg for all the money. You know. And then when you look at our Majesty of Design, who designed the clotting system of the blood in our body? Who designed the factors and the rheses, the positives, the negatives? Who worked it all out? At the very beginning, there was light, and God said it was good, and you know all this stuff about God. Yeah. But blood in itself is a terrific invention. You could just see them thinking about it, how they're going to invent something that's got to have a liquid going around it that acts as a cooler, a waste disposal system, a repair business that does the internal repairs of the tissue, provides nutrients to the rest of the body in every corner of every crevice, takes away waste products and carries oxygen and gets rid of carbon dioxide. I mean, can you imagine the remit of, right, this is your job for today, here you are, and you've got to create this solution called blood. And this is what the blood has to do. That's over to you then, Stanley. All right, and so I'll get on with that. And then Stanley's mate, Dave, oh yeah, he's on the retina. He has to study the retina and the eye and light detection and how it actually auto-focuses without us even having to think about it. And it's got to have 2 chambers of clear fluid, aqueous humour and vitreous humour, the different densities, so the eyeball maintains its shape. Then, of course, he has to put the lens in, then figure out how the iris is going to contract to restrict the light coming in and out. And that's not to mention the wonderful thing of filtrating the water that's going into the eye and out of the eye and maintaining the pressure so our eyeballs remain balls instead of flat things. Oh God, a hell of a job. So, what job you got then, Tony? I got to develop something called eye. And it's got to do all this. Cool, you're lucky I've got the blood. Can you imagine the conversation of the people who designed human beings? What have you got, Jeff? I've got this thing called bone and stem cells to organise. Oh, you poor sod, how boring. What have you got? Oh, I've got an ovary. I don't know what the hell it does yet. I haven't looked at the remit. You see, don't tell me, Mr. I've got an ology, that we were a freak of nature. No. The problem is, whenever human beings, clever people, alleged, can't explain something, they have to make it up, because nature abhors a vacuum. And they'd rather fill it with shit and then expect us to believe it after they teach it to us at school. But as long as we get knowledge, because we can regurgitate it on a paper, we're okay. We're one of the thickos. We're one of the ones that accept being the bullshitted to, because we want the acceptance. The moment you step out the line, out of the main argument of what science is telling you and dictating to you, you're a pariah. And one such person, folks, is a guy called Dr. Bruce Lipton, who's, well, this guy has contributed more to science in the short time he's been on this world than many, many, many alleged scientists that have gone in history. And this guy is so ridiculed by modern-day ologist scientists, although he's a scientist himself. He's just realised it's all bullshit and he's a worm that turned. Dr. Bruce Lipton. Lipton. Check his stuff out. I'll just turn my phone off, excuse me. It's probably Brucey. Shh, Bruce, catch you later. I'm still designing the blood. No, facts is, they're lying. I can't go into anywhere, bookshops now, and pick up a science book and take it seriously. I have to get into a giggle. They expect us to believe this. You couldn't make it up. Well, they do make it up. And they make it up because if they don't understand, they'll make some bullshit up and then get some personality or lack of a personality out there on stage to tell you this is how it is, folks. And you've got to believe me, because would I lie to you, my boy? Oh, you bloody would. Because believe it or not, folks, in closing, there are certain groups of people on this world that know exactly who developed human beings and who created the beings and life on this earth. But they're not from this earth. Because it's like you being an ant. To be able to comprehend what's truly going on, you may as well ask a little ant at the end of a runway at Heathrow, who's walking along the one day with his little legs, and he stops and he looks up and he says, "What the f is that?" And he sees a jumbo jet just about to take off. Can you imagine the size difference now? Can you? Yeah, I'm sure you can. And he's got his little hands on his hips, this ant, and his little feelers. He's going, what the hell? Because that ant's perspective is like tiny, isn't it? Now he's looking at something like a jumbo jet. It's so out there. Can you imagine the perspective shock, the shock and awe, if you want to use the phrase, of that ant thinking, what the hell is that? Even if he could think that, he possibly does. And then it flies off, this jumbo jet, after making a hell of a noise and blood, I forgot. He's in a state of shock, isn't he? That is what we have to look at. And that ant has got no chance of figuring out what the hell that jumbo jet is and who made it and where it come from. Okay. And that ant ever figuring that out have got the same statistical chances of this. That if you can have 50 junkyards full of scrap metal and a whirlwind comes along and picks up and causes a tornado of all this junk, spins it around at great rate of knots and stops suddenly and donk, right there, all that metal is joined together by the wind. What are the chances of that being a fully formed jumbo jet? Nada. And man will never be able to comprehend the majesty of the creation of life on this earth. And if they can't figure it out and grasp it and accept that that is the truth, there is no hope, because we are far too arrogant a species to think that we just will never know. Our ego for our advancement is in the way. And any advancement we may make by hook or by crook, and any decent people that do make monumental leaps in knowledge, are vilified and cast aside by the system that seeks to oppress our knowledge. And therefore there is no hope for humans on this planet. We will die out. And it is quite by design, because we're not here for the purpose. Everything on this world, the flat plane, has a purpose. Everything. Because the one thing nature, if you want to call it that, hates is waste. And that's why this world, the flat plane, if you want to call it that, never seems to get much heavier or lighter in weight. Not really. Because we are a sealed unit. We have a dome. We're not getting heavier and we're not getting lighter. Because nothing gets in, folks, and nothing gets out. We is what we is, and we're at where we're at. And we've got to make the best of what we got, which is not a lot. But we're not going any further until we eat humble pie and realise is we've got to be humble enough to say we simply don't know. But we're willing to learn and listen. And all around us, all around human beings, nature is screaming at us, saying, it is that simple. And yet, the ologists amongst us massively complicate things, creating a fog in front of what we should see as a clear road ahead, because they want to control us. And this is the most frustrating thing, if you look way back, is that we're going nowhere. We are in this void we call our solar system unique. There are other systems like ours, but they are what's necessarily going to tell you or me that the planet that is nearest us, that we can go and visit, has got any people on there more advanced than us? Why do we always assume those out there are going to be more intellectual and switched on than us? Perhaps it's the people on Earth are the most advanced species in the universe, and the rest have to catch up. Oh no, because the fact is they got here and we can't get there, so they know more than us. They don't necessarily know more than us, but they're willing to learn. And that's the problem. Because we're not all here to learn, we're here to be slaves. And that's why we were brought to this planet, to harvest gold. To harvest gold and minerals from the earth. That's why we were designed. We're miners. That's all. We are slaves, Neo. And we're the stupid ones. It is the animals and the plants and the creatures and the microbes that are the clever ones, because they answer to no one. I bet you got a boss. And if you haven't, you've got a wife or a husband. Or a girlfriend and boyfriend. Or partner, modern day term. We all have to answer and pay the ferryman, don't we? And the other way to control people is this imaginary friend called Jesus, who's watching your every move, unless you make one. Well, that is mind control. And most people, folks, are walking around this earth with closed minds. No, nothing on the horizon. They got more of the same tomorrow than they did today, with no future. And you want to know, all we're doing is running to stand still, because we don't realize yet, and want to admit yet, that we as a species are as thick as they come. It's ever likely other people on other planets are brighter than us, because we got the elite 5% bankers in charge of our world, and they don't want us to learn how special we truly all are. So don't come theology bit with me. Been there, done it, got the t-shirt. And the best these tossers can do is hide the evidence. Well, the truth will set us free. That can be assured. Catch you tomorrow, folks. Got a lot to do. Bye now.